Game started.
Ah, got a game. Chupa Surf from Spain. So, okay, knight f3, knight f6. So I just make a non-committal move and wait and see what his plan is. Okay, he's planning to play a d4 style opening. So let's challenge with d6. The idea is to play e5 later, try and undermine the center. Okay, we've transposed into a King's Indian defense. So usually leads to some kind of exciting game. We'll see if he plays. The classical line here is bishop to bishop to e2. He played bishop to d3. Leaves this pawn. Well, it doesn't need to be defended because it's not really under attack and it has the knight. Okay, it's an interesting way to play. So what he's done here is it's allowed me to play this move here, knight g4 with tempo on the bishop. But after the bishop moves, the knight is kind of hanging loose there. Let's castle and see what he plays. Then I'll try that. Because I want to play, after knight g4, I want to play f4, and I'd really like to have the king castled before I play f4. Okay, closes the center. So yeah, let's try this. Knight g4. Seems like it gains a tempo on the bishop, unless he wants to trade. He can grab this pawn, I guess, and I can take his bishop. And he can take my knight. I take back. Oh, he goes that way. He attacks my queen. Let's retreat the knight then. This way of playing, I think, is designed to stop me from pushing f5, but it did slow me down. What I'm planning to do is unpin with the queen. This is still adequately protected here, and then go ahead and push f5 anyway. Now, since I'm a step slower, this might not be as good as it is in a normal line, but you don't know. I don't know, actually. It might be a problem. So I have the knight to c5 idea hitting this bishop, which is currently protected, but you might not want to trade that piece off. And it also puts some pressure on this pawn. So, but let's play f5 first. Ooh, knight g5. So, yeah, he can get his knight into this square, which is probably pretty good. So maybe knight c5 is forced here. That protects that square. And I'm just checking to see if I'm threatening anything. If I push ahead, the bishop still has a safe square to go to. And if I take, he can just take back. So knight c5 seems like the idea. Also, it opens up the bishop onto this square here too. So he just retreats. So now if I take, he can take. If I push, he can move the bishop. But that bishop does not look like it would be stable. Okay, so I push. He puts his bishop there. I could move my knight to here. So bishop, so that's f4, bishop h4, knight to g4. Now I can't Yeah, the knight's defended by the bishop. Knight to g4, and then I'm threatening to push h6 and h6 and g5, trapping the bishop. And what's he going to do about that? He can attack my knight immediately and force me to move it again. But still, this looks interesting. If I could move this knight with tempo, it would be even better, but I don't see a tempo move that it has. Okay, just retreated the knight, so maybe he's going to sacrifice here and open up the kingside. And that's an interesting idea. So I can't play g5 immediately. I need to prepare with h6. That's one way. He can kick the knight, and then I have to go back to a square where the bishop can trade for the knight. Still, it's probably a good trade for me, isn't it? Isn't this a good trade for me? Now, do I want to take with the rook or the bishop? The rook lift might be useful. I'll take with the rook, and then as I push these pawns, the rook might go to g6, for example. Okay, now the knight has to go somewhere. I think it wants to come back. So we're getting a typical King's Indian type of position where I'm expanding on the king side, and my opponent is gaining a lot of space on the queen side. I have to make sure this rook is not too much of a target here. Let's unpin the knight. Then I'm just planning to play. I'm going to let him take if he wants to, or even push. I'm just going to get my counterplay going. Now, unfortunately, I can't push h5 immediately. That's what I'd like to do, push h5 and g4. But I have to defend it first. So he's attacking this undefended pawn here. I'm going to bring my knight over. You know, I could play I could play g4 immediately here. And then if he takes, I take back with the bishop. It's an idea. It just seems better if I have the pawn there instead, but let's think about this now. So he's going to open up and get pressure on this c-pawn, and I can't really do anything about it except to defer it by maybe putting my bishop here. So I think I need to get something going immediately. So if I push immediately, he takes, I take, rook here. I can block with the bishop. Knight moves, and the bishop is pinned. And it's attacked twice and defended twice. I could get my queen out of the way. Incidentally hitting the e-pawn here. And what can he do? He can take here now. But but he didn't. He went that way. Okay, so let's push ahead. So pawn here. Pawn takes. Bishop takes. Then queen up and rook over. And mate on that square. Why not? Mate on g2. After bishop takes, the knight is hanging, actually, even. Because the queen has a pin on the g file here. Ah, he moves the knight there. Ah, that's good. So what's he going to do? He can go to that square. Okay, let's go there. Maybe I should have stayed on the g file, actually. And I have the knight to g6 to f4, or h4 is an idea too. After this knight goes away, I guess the knight doesn't have to go away. I could take here. If he defends with a pawn, he could defend with a pawn. So let's see, g3, fg, fg, rook takes, rook takes. He's got two pawns here. I'm going to pawn here. The bishop behind it so I can take this way. I still have this hanging over here. Ah, this is an interesting way to play. It basically deprives me of my light squared bishop, which is useful in many attacking lines. But in return, what I get is a chance to take his h-pawn. Rather than taking here right away, I want to try and discomfit his king. Also, this pawn keeps his queen out of the game in a way. Keeps my knight out of the game. I may have to take that pawn, because I can't play knight g3 as long as that pawn is there. And queen on h3 is very dangerous. I can push this pawn to f3 and then mate on g2. It's another idea. Yeah, he goes there. So let's think about this. So I take that pawn, he takes back, and his queen is defending. If I push first,
check.
His king has to go to the corner. The king can't go here because I have this pawn push. And now my idea is simply queen to queen to h6 and queen to h3 to g2 mate. And he can't bring a rook over here to defend. What he can do is attack this pawn. Somehow he can attack that pawn, maybe. But it's important to keep these lines closed here so his pieces can't get over and defend easily. One of the keys to the King's Indian defense and the way these attacks often succeed is the white's king position is cramped. Even though white has all this space on the queen side, he has trouble organizing a defense. Yeah, so he just goes for desperate counterplay, but that I don't think there's any way to stop the mate now. There's no checks. Well, he can give up a rook. That works.
Check.
And now he has to take back with his king, and he gets mated anyway. He can't take back with the rook because his king is in check. So, yeah, that was not a defense. So it's a double check. The only thing you can do when you have a double check is move the king. The only legal king move is king takes queen, and then queen to g2 is mate. So really,
White resigns.
that was game over. All right, very interesting game, and pretty typical kind of King's Indian defense game. Hope you guys enjoyed that. And I'm going to do a post-mortem video on this, see how things could have gone differently, and see you then. Bye.